Well, he's young. He's 39. He's in his first term as a U.S. Senator from Ohio. He sort of broke into national consciousness as a memoirist, writing about rural America. But at the time, as you say, he was very critical of Mr. Trump. He even called him America's Hitler. And, hard to see, the journey from there to now being completely loyal to the former president, but that's how he's gone. When he ran for Senate in Ohio, he realized that to do so, he would need to effectively kiss the ring. He's done so. He's been very aggressively defending Trump on social media and elsewhere, and really sort of been at the forefront of the culture war issues that the Republican Party likes to focus on these days. And that really has been enough to bring him to prominence. He's young, articulate, and apparently, so far as we can tell now, committed to the Trump agenda. Now, whether his naked ambition will sit well with Trump in the long term, hard to know. But for now, clearly he's making a choice based not so much on the politics, because doubling down on the sort of Make America Great agenda is not really what Trump needs politically, but for governance, right? Making a signal about how he intends to govern and that this is a longer lasting philosophy than just Trump himself.
Yeah, and it's, I guess, the fact that he is young, he offers an alternative to the two older men running for president, but he is a very strict pro-lifer, he's anti-Ukraine. Does that not just re-entrench the really far right of the Republican Party?
Well, Trump is anti-Ukraine as well. I mean, so I think in terms of being isolationist, anti-free trade, anti-foreign aid, Vance, at this point at least, fits pretty closely into the Trump agenda. And he's shown, honestly, that he's willing to bend to other parts of it where that serves his purposes. I do think, Trump, let's face it, is older, only a few years younger than Joe Biden. He's term limited. And so this is a signal in some ways about 2028, about, the future of MAGA. And so, yes, I do think this is actually a choice based more on governance than on politics, because the signal it sends, is not one of unity. It's not one of wanting to expand the Republican base. It's really a doubling down on, the divisions we've already seen so starkly in America.
Yeah. Do you think what happened over the weekend in any way influenced Donald Trump's pick?
I actually thought it might mitigate against this pick. As I say, Vance was out there very quickly blaming Joe Biden, for the assassination attempt. He said that Biden's rhetoric was the cause of this attack. Trump himself has been trying to damp that down. He said that he's going to give a brand new speech, calling for unity. Biden, of course, has been doing the same. And so I thought perhaps this might be a chance for Trump to sort of show in very tangible terms that he was trying to expand his base and to reach out for unity by picking, could be someone, still within the big tent of the Republican Party, right? Somebody like Nikki Haley, for example, or, somebody even, further to the left, or the center, who might help Trump appeal to independents in November. He didn't go that way. And so actually I thought that the attack would spark, maybe a little more of a reset than it seems to have done.
Yeah, interesting. What seems to be going Donald Trump's way also, Andrew, is legal decision-making. What did you make of the federal court throwing out the documents case?
Well, I have to say, as someone who has studied the Presidential Records Act and the statutes about political appointments and the executive branch in some detail, I was shocked, actually. I think legally it's a very unsound decision. There are a lot of higher court precedents, including one from the 1970s from the Supreme Court, that Judge Cannon in Florida basically chose to ignore or dismiss as irrelevant. They're not irrelevant. They're pretty directly on point to this case. She seems to have been inspired by a single concurring opinion by Justice Clarence Thomas in the recent presidential immunity case, another decision that really went Mr. Trump's way. And she seems to have taken that as a hint that she should rule this way. Of course, a district court judge, the lowest level of the federal judiciary in the United States, is not allowed to invent her own law. even if a Supreme Court justice thinks it might be a neat thing to do. So I'm a little skeptical that this ruling will survive any kind of appeals process. It is, unfortunately, part and parcel of a long delay imposed already by Judge Cannon, and now, she's dismissed the case entirely. So in the short term, certainly a big win for Trump. Longer term, I don't know that it will matter. But of course, now the trial can't happen before the election, and that really was the Trump lawyers' main objective to start with.
Yeah, it's kind of their modus operandi. I'm interested in your observations, Andrew. There's almost this sense from some commentators that there's almost now an inevitability towards Trump marching towards the White House, particularly after the weekend's events. Is it too soon for that?
I think it is too soon. You have still very static poll results, though, I think there were some concerning ones that came out only yesterday showing President Biden running behind his party's Senate candidates in some key states, right, where the Senate Democratic candidates are actually winning and Biden is losing in his head-to-head matchup with Mr. Trump. So I don't think the vibes are very good, right, within the Democratic Party for sure. The vibes are terrific within the Republican Party. Trump is a conquering hero, the best kind of martyr, one who is actually still around and, ready to lead. And so, I do think the sort of psychology of the race has shifted somewhat, but we haven't yet seen that on the ground. It'll be very interesting to see whether Biden voters come back to Biden. That's been the main problem for him so far, is a lack of enthusiasm within the party. And again, whether Trump can add voters. He hasn't really shown an inclination or ability to do that yet. Perhaps the shock of the weekend does help him with that. Certainly, they're hoping that his projection of strength will appeal to those who have sort of been on the fence. But again, in America, there's not that many people on the fence. And while I would hope that this kind of violent act would provoke, sort of a reset, a rethinking of American polarization. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that's even going to happen.
Yeah, it's true. Now, and that's when we come back to the ticket, as we were talking about earlier, that Trump is now presenting. It seems to provide an even starker contrast of where he wants to take America.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think one thing that the Biden administration was hoping for from the Republican National Convention was, loud, clear statement of the Republican Party platform, which in some cases is quite popular and populist, but in others, right, does not really meld well with public opinion. For example, when you think about abortion rights or even questions of racial justice or immigration, right? These aren't necessarily popular positions in the wider public. So there are, I think, chances for Team Biden to focus on substance and the policies which would be imposed. You may have heard of sort of the famous Project 2025, which is a 900-page blueprint for extremely conservative governance that Trump-allied think tanks have come up with. The Biden administration and the Biden candidate, the Biden campaign have certainly been hoping to focus attention on that. And by the way, you saw even in the first night of the Republican convention, not a lot of unity. Many attacks on the Democratic Party, on Biden as sort of socialist and senile. Again, the pick of Vance for vice president does kind of double down on that. So I'm not sure it advances the Trump political cause. Again, I think it's something that will make loyalists within the Trump part of the Republican Party very happy.
Yeah. Andrew, fascinating times. Good to talk as always. Thanks.
Great pleasure.